I'm Carrie Stinson, and my journey through life has been quite an adventure. For over 20 years, I played Barney the Dinosaur on tour and 7 seasons of the hugely popular TV show Barney and Friends. Now my journey is to bring together friends and guests from all over the entertainment world for inspiring and at times amusing behind-the-scenes conversation. I'm Carrie Stinson, and this is Purple Roads. Welcome to Purple Roads. This is a very special episode. I'm so excited. We have this week Natalie and Ron Daise from Gullah Gullah Island. Ron and Natalie, how are you?
We're good. Thank you.
Doing wonderful.
We have had so many fans that have asked if we could get you on this show. I am so glad you're here, and I can't wait to talk about Gullah Gullah.
Thank you. It's funny to us, there's so many, the kids who grew up watching us are now adults with children, but we're still reaching out. We're still like Aunt Natalie and Uncle Ron to so many people.
Yes, I've actually had that experience too. It's very strange. I started with Barney back in 1991 and went 22 years. And it's very strange when you have what were 2-year-olds that are now these grown adults saying they used to watch you.
Yes, my dentist was working on my teeth.
Or we're out in the community and people hear us speaking and
they'll recognize our voices.
I know you from somewhere.
Yeah.
Where do I know you from? And I don't say anything. And they want to, they're waiting for me. And finally, they may ask, were you on TV? Yes, I was. Well, what show?
Well, it was on for a while, and it was very successful.
It was.
It's got to be something that it's such a great experience when fans come to you.
It is. And they want us to know what particular episodes were meaningful to them, what songs they remember, the impact that it had for many of them, because they saw images that look like themselves. And that really sparked an interest in them, a sense of pride.
I want to start off by how this all got started. I know, Ron, isn't it a little bit about, it's the Gullah community that you brought to the world with this show.
But it came about by being in the right place at the right time and God opening a door for us. We had become friends with Gloria Naylor, the novelist, who had written a book, Mama Day, which was about a fictional Gullah community. And after the book was published, she moved to St. Helena Island, which is where I was born. And that's a part of Beaufort County where Natalie and I lived. And I'm waiting for her to join in.
Oh, okay. I'm a good listener. So anyway, Gloria was in the process of getting a movie about her book, and she brought her good friend who was going to executive produce the movie. Her name is Maria Perez Brown now. And she invited us to dinner, and we're sitting around eating cold chicken out at a friend's house. I'm very pregnant. And we started talking about children's TV because we had a little one, 3, who did watch you. And she watched Maya the Bee and she watched the Smurfs. Right. And that's basically it. Because the only characters of color that we could find were purple and blue, largely, that she watched. Right. And we were just talking about how we wished that there was something else our children could see. And Maria said, well, Nickelodeon's trying to diversify, and my partners and I have been pitching them shows. Maybe we could do a show about you.
Maybe it could be about some magical island. Yeah. Because if we understood correctly, their ideas had been about an island. And she's Puerto Rican, right? And this was their first time visiting one of the Sea Island communities. Maybe it could be about that. Would you be interested, she asked? And we said, sure, but we didn't think much would come out of it. But she said that when she got back to New York, she would speak with her partner and they would be in touch, and true to her word. That's what happened.
Yeah, actually, we didn't think it would, because, if you've been we've been telling stories and singing and doing programs about Gullah culture for years before this. And you always met people who said, you guys should be on Broadway. You guys should be on television. And we're always like, yeah, thank you. So
then we never hear anything.
You never hear anything.
Right.
And so we weren't out trying to do TV, but we got a call asking us to come to New York, I think like March of the next year. And by then I was like almost 9 months pregnant, April.
Oh, wow.
I was like, nah. Because it wasn't like that, like, we'll go, come high. You know, we were just like, nah.
Right. But during the dinner conversation, we were asked what were our thoughts about children's TV. And we said what we thought would be exciting for our 3-year-old and soon to be born child. And with those thoughts in mind, the Perez Minton Productions sent a creative team down to Beaufort, South Carolina. And they spent a few days just among us, finding out who we were, what we did. And the show was built around our real lives.
And probably why it works, because we talk about this a lot. In the children's world, I think authenticity is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kids can tell if it's not real. And I think this authentic story that you all, and the show that you did, probably really resonated with them.
I think the head writer, his name at the time was Francesville Hyman, and I just still love him because he came after we got the show, and that was 93. We flew up to New York after my son was born, Simeon, and we went to this meeting. He's 5 weeks old. We're sitting in this meeting, and one of the VPs at Nick asked to hold him, and he threw up on her suit, which probably cost more than my car. And we were like, well, at least, hey, we got a trip to New York.
Right.
But by the time we got back to the airport, we had a show, which, I hear it doesn't work like that. No agents, no managers, just us. And so when we got the show, at some point later, they sent the head writer to Beaufort, and he hung out for like a week. He went to church with us. He sat around the house with us. He held the babies. And he said, you don't have to be actors. You be yourself, and we'll work around you. We'll work with you. And that, we could go.
One thing, because Natalie and I traveled to do our cultural performances, and our daughter, Sarah, was potty trained on the road. When we got back home, and this is what the creative team saw, I was always looking for opportunities to just have fun with Sarah in her home environment. So during the day, I would take her to the backyard and push her on the swing. And Sarah loved being in the swing. She could stay on the swing for hours. We'd be singing to her and pushing her. But because I was a dad home during the day with my child, the neighborhood children would see me and come, and they would want to become involved as well. So I was pushing the children on the swing or tossing frisbees with them, just having a good time. And that's what the creative team saw. If they went into the house, Natalie would be, serving refreshments, and Natalie was a crafts person. So she was working on crafts, and that's what Miss Natalie did. I was, my first job out of college was as a newspaper reporter. Mr. Ron on Gullah Gullah Island is a newspaper reporter.
Yeah, it was always funny. The kids would come to the house to see, can Mr. Ron come out and play? I mean, that's
Well, it's pretty obvious talking to you that both of you are natural performers, though. And yeah, so you might not have been natural actors, but you're definitely natural performers. And I can't imagine they didn't see that.
I think you did.
Because I don't see it very difficult. I can see exactly what they saw, that it wouldn't be that difficult to put a show around the two of you.
Right.
Yeah, and our kids basically, they were there because they had to be. I was nursing my son. And so it's not like I could go do a show and leave him somewhere.
Right.
So, you write them in. Simeon was in and Sarah was there. She played the neighbor kid because she was very shy. But as a neighbor kid, she could say things like, me too. And that was like just enough.
Right.
Well, it's really brilliant to do that, right? To just use what they do instead of trying to get a child to be completely out of character.
We had a director.
Brilliant.
We had a director who was like, trying to get Simeon, if you don't do this, you won't get a close-up. I'm like, Simeon's 3, he don't want a close-up. He doesn't care.
Even younger than that.
Yeah, younger than that. Threatening my son with the lack of a close-up means nothing to him.
It's so funny. I worked with some kids. Some of them get jobs because they're cute. Yeah. They may not have all of that. And I've seen kids walk off the stage, in the middle of a take. I need to go to the restroom. It's like, oh, get that. Hold on a second.
Right.
It's what's so great about kids, right? They're going to do what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm so curious hearing this story. So what is it like for Simeon now, knowing that he was part of all of this in the beginning?
It's funny because he's an actor now. He's actually out in LA at the moment. But it was weird for him in a way. We finished the show, we went back home, and it was time for kindergarten. And we went to our local public school. We did what parents do. Let's meet the teachers, blah, 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 see if this is a good fit. But then on his first day of school, when he goes into the classroom, everybody knows him.
Simeon!
And we hadn't, it didn't, it's funny because our lives as performers, which we've been doing before Gullah Gullah Island, there's a tendency to think about, okay, well, we're done with that, and now we're going to do this. But Gullah Gullah Island meant that you never could really say, we're done with that, and now we're going to do this, because everything is different. So it was actually very hard for my son, like by the time he got to like middle school. Because the middle school kids were not like, it was so cool, you were on Gullah Gullah. They're like, you was on Gullah Gullah, And he really, he's an excellent actor. He's got perfect pitch.
Wow.
Thank you, Creator God. That was our fear. We used to be afraid we'd have kids who were tone deaf and didn't like to read. That was our concern. Yeah, we'd like them to have 10 fingers and 10 toes, but please. But he grew into himself because he's an amazing actor. He would do musical theater up until high school, and then he stopped because it was so uncool. But now as a man, he's an actor.
There were different perceptions from community members, from teachers, about who we were and who they were as actors. And they were just on the set, more or less, but they were considered actors, and what that must have meant to them, for them, which wasn't their reaction. So that both of our children had those things to live with.
Yeah, to navigate being the TV kids in a community where, like, maybe if we had been in LA or New York, or even at the time, in Florida, maybe if they had been around a lot of other people who were doing in this world, it would have been easier to navigate than sort of like just going back home. But they are amazing and wonderful and brilliant and beautiful, and not just because I gave birth to them.
Very proud parents. What was it like for the two of you having to remember lines and be actors, and also have your kids there? Did you worry about them? Were you able to kind of balance?
We had either family members or friends who were on set with our children. Of course, Sarah was of age where she had
a tutoring,
tutoring for the students involved. But Simeon, for the most part, once he was off the set, we had someone in charge who took care of him, and we tried to make sure that the assistants knew that he was then to be. There were others in charge, so if he said he wanted something from some refreshment or something, they didn't have to do the child star, give this to him. No,
Yeah,
had certain parameters.
That was important because he would have been running that set if we had not had grandma or auntie or grandpa there, because it would be like, Simeon, I want a cookie. Here you go. Like, nah.
And then we found because he was from soon after birth, he was involved. And as he got older, the directors knew that if there was a set, you got Simeon first. Now, Simeon may not be down here on the script, but if Simeon is on now, okay, let's do the Simeon and then release him so that we could move on.
In terms of learning lines, that really wasn't a big deal because we've been performing for years, doing storytelling and performance and musical theater kind of stuff. Most of it original. A lot of it that Ron had written, it came from the first book he wrote, which was about the Sea Islands. The hard part was when you do like theater or storytelling, you start at A and you go to Z. Right. And you memorize A to Z. And I remember the first time it's like, okay, here's the script. I will memorize the script. And then you get in and they say, we're starting at D. I don't even know how to get to D. Right. And then, okay, we're going to do D. And then I come back the next day and there's some different color pages. And so I learned D, but it's not even the same D.
Right.
And so what I started doing really was like the day I would say, okay, what are we doing? Because
no, on the other hand, I had no problems with that, and I wanted to see the script, right. Even though they gave us the script sometimes after midnight, and we needed to be on the set by 6 o'clock or 7. I wanted to review so that I could offer suggestions if there were any changes or edits. The initial challenge for me was coming just from a theatrical performance background when you're on stage or we're out in communities where there are no microphones, so there's a need to project.
Right.
Project well, but when you're on the set, you don't need to do that. So I had to learn to rein that in.
How long did it take you to do that?
Well, one of the producers kept saying, well, we need you to do, we want you to do this like this. But if you need any help with doing it, we have, some people could come in to assist. But I just wondered why she kept throwing in that caveat, but we could. If there's something that's going wrong, as opposed to telling me this is what you need to do because I think that this is what I'm doing. But I found later, it was okay. It was just a matter of volume, just not performing so large.
Yeah, you don't need to reach the back seats.
Right.
Right. There's a lot of help there to
right.
help.
Yeah.
Before we go any further on this, because I want to get more into this, but would you all explain the Gullah Gullah community?
Sure.
What it means to you?
Well, it is very important to me during my birth and at the time that the show was created. It was known as the Sea Island community, and I would probably say that I was a Sea Islander. I'm from St. Helena Island, South Carolina, which is in Beaufort County. About the time that the show came into creation, there was an awareness of the Sea Islands being a part of a larger Gullah community. And in 2006, that's after Gullah Gullah Island had stopped, there was a federal designation of an area in this country known as the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor. Those coastal communities spanning from Wilmington, North Carolina, down throughout South Carolina and Georgia, all the way down to St. Augustine, Florida. And it's within these communities that the ancestors of Gullah Geechee people West Africans were brought for the production of rice and other cash crops. Many came from those rice-producing countries of Africa, and Gullah Geechee people have remnants of that West African heritage in our language, in our beliefs, in the way we hold ourselves, in our crafts, in our music. And that, in essence, is what Gullah Geechee culture is all about, which, as I said, I was a Sea Islander.
Yeah. And also, you know, in the voice, because you can hear Ron's voice, you hear that kind of melodious tone. And a lot of people think it sounds like patois. Or, you know, sometimes people say, where are you from? And it's like, well, South Carolina. No, but where are you from? Because those folks who speak Gullah Geechee, which is also used for the language, have that West African tone in the voice. So it was kind of fun to do a show that was based in a real culture, which was our home, and using our neighbors in our community.
Right.
And I think it was the first time that this culture was sort of like brought to the world.
It's so interesting, and I know how important what you did was. As you started off the episode talking about kids being able to see of color, the importance of that, and I think it's so interesting as we're pushing it now, but it's always been there, and a show like yours, it's got to be such an amazing experience for you because one, you're getting to be on TV, which is really cool, but you're also getting to do something that's so important to you, to show this culture to the world.
To the world. It was an international broadcast. And in 2005, I participated in a historic trip known as Priscilla's Homecoming, which was a Gullah homecoming of community members from South Carolina. And this was the third one, going to Sierra Leone, West Africa. And on that trip, halfway around the world, we had, those who had participated had been to an island, Tasso Island, I believe, which is near Bunce Island. And Bunce Island is one of the slave prisons from which many of the Africans who were brought to the coastal communities of South Carolina and Georgia had been transported from. But we had left that trip on a ferry, and we were wearing our t-shirts for the event, Priscilla's Homecoming, a Gullah homecoming. And someone on the trip, he was speaking to the coordinator of the trips about the t-shirts. Is that Gullah, he asked, as in Gullah Gullah Island? And the coordinator said, why, yes. And the star of the show is over there. So he came to me smiling and wanted to take a picture with me to send to his 4 to 6-year-old son who lived in Germany. He was a Nigerian, and he and his son watched the show regularly, and he said it reminded him so much of his childhood growing up in Nigeria, the faces of the people and the language and all the colors. There was a connection, and there were connections with people of numerous cultures from the different letters, emails that we've received throughout the years, that it sparked something within them that they loved, they related to.
Natalie, did you realize when you were doing this show that it was more than a show?
No.
That it was going to be very important what you were doing, and there's a responsibility, right? That all of a sudden there's people around the world that you've inspired, that you've shown a new culture.
I am still embracing that. At first, I really didn't think about it. You know, this was the work we were doing, and I was happy. And I remember once talking to the Jerry Laborn, who was then executive director of Nick, CEO of Nick, and she said something about millions of people watching, and I was like, I can't know that. And even the cameras, because I wasn't used to cameras, the way I could do it was to think that was a window.
Oh.
Now, on the other side was one of the kids from my neighborhood who I knew. So I could talk to like Mikey, who lived in the back behind us. It was very comfortable to do that. That's how I kind of eased into it. I had no idea. I'm still like hearing from one kid, he's married, he's grown.
Right.
He's been writing me for over 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
He's autistic. And it's amazing how many watchers were autistic and who I hear from, who reach out to me. And I don't even know what it is about my voice, but say something about my voice they really connected with. So I hear from that. I hear from others still who I'm like their family. I think it began to register. And I was telling someone this story recently, and it still really moves me. I'm in a supermarket, minding my own business. You know, I've probably been digging in my yard. I am not pretty. I'm just in there. And this man, I've seen them move by. It was an older white man and a young boy who looked like he might have been Latinx. And the little boy is about 7. I'm almost out of the store with my groceries when the man comes up to me and he taps me. He says, "Excuse me, I don't know who you are, but you made my boy very happy." And he handed me a carnation and a $5 bill. And I was like, wow. Wow. You know, that just really impacted me. That, and I had this mother and girl come up to me once, little white girl, and the mother was saying, "You know, I keep telling my daughter that her hair is pretty just the way it is. I know she wants hair like yours, but her hair is pretty just the way it is." And, you know, having grown up with so many little Black girls wishing they had hair that looked like little white girls, and to have this little white girl she just wanted hair like mine, you know? So it began to register what this is. And I'll say is, not was, what it is. Because
it's still out there. I mean, it's very easy to access, and it's obviously affecting people. So yeah, it is. It's definitely not a was.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the import of the show, to me, I guess my first awareness of it, and it was during the first season, and we would go into supermarkets in Orlando, and little children would come up to me, they'd throw themselves around, wrap themselves around my knee, and the mothers, the reaction of the mothers would be okay, because they were at home with their children during the day.
More likely.
But the fathers, there was this Black man, and they, you know, their children are coming and hugging, and this was the time when, you know, police and helicopters were following the white minivan in LA.
Right.
SUV.
Yeah.
So
I think the first time it was a mall, and that's the first time we realized what was going on.
Right.
After the first season, we're in a mall, someone started yelling, "Uncle Ron, Uncle Ron." And and you, I think my daughter, she was so tickled when she knew we were talking to you. Because I guess you could un-Barney.
I could.
But we could not.
Yeah, right. You could not. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I did.
I could.
Right. Well, not only that, but also you didn't hear my voice. So, you know, I could do a concert and then leave the building and no one had any clue who I am. But I could have my eyes closed and know who you are. That voice, you know, these voices are so
there was a very important festival on St. Helena Island. It was the Penn Center Heritage Days Festival. And when that began, in the first season, one of the episodes dealt with, we were at Penn Center, and I think we kind of, wasn't it a presentation of a festival?
Yeah.
We were at a festival, which was like the real festival. And Natalie and I had been one of the MCs of this event before Gullah Gullah Island. But after Gullah Gullah Island started, our love of going to this festival, there was a change because we could never watch and enjoy the festival. People would constantly be coming up to us. They were greeting us, which was fine, but they would want us to sign autographs and take pictures, not just individually with them, but everyone around them, and everyone around them when they saw that being done. So it became less enjoyable to be there just for that reason. Sure. But the festival itself continued to be
it's still a very cool festival. And now, we go back, it's been years, and now the children are grown, and now it's their children. And I am really honored, really, when I meet my kids,
Yeah, I do. I think you've hit such an interesting point, Natalie, that the importance of that show, and we talked about this a minute ago, kids seeing people of color, but everyone loved it. As you're mentioning, the white girl, I think we make such an issue here, but the show really is just for everyone. The story's everything, and I think sometimes TV executives don't understand that. Yeah. Just put a great show out, a great story, great people.
Yeah. Family pet was known as Binya Pollywog. Binya is a Gullah Geechee expression. I'm a Binya, a native of a Gullah community, someone who has been here or was born there is a Binya, because we have been here or Binya. Those who relocate to a Gullah Geechee community from any place else in the universe will never be called a Binya. They'll be called a Kumya. They're Binyas and Kumyas. And that awareness, bringing that awareness of the speech to this international audience, Binyas and other Gullah words and expressions. In the first season, a lot of the songs were based on old spirituals, which are the songs of my community.
And folk songs.
Well, that's got to be an amazing experience too. I'm presuming you've heard kids sing them, and
well, they had some great writers, Peter Lorre and Billy Coben and Gail Sky King. And so they could take songs that because this is long ago now.
Sure.
So the production company would say, "Well, what are y'all singing?" So we'd be home with our cassette. And
I had cassettes. Don't worry, I'm right there with you.
Singing songs in our cassette and mailing them to New York. And then they would work with these songs. We might sing some song that we had sung with the kids, Aunt Jenny cornbread, sweet, sweet, sweet. And then they would take it and then they would do something, and then
And our recording, we recorded for the show in New York City. We were scheduled, was it just a week?
2 weeks.
For 2 weeks. So we would quickly go through these songs, and we would, for the most part, sing all of the songs for the production. After everyone was called together, the children then would do the lines that would later be given to them, but we would be doing the whole songs. And we would go through so many songs per day. We would be walking back to our hotel late at night, and we were just singing these songs. They're stuck.
Walking down the street in Manhattan, jump in, jump out, turn, because it's just stuck.
Oh, I love it. So I presume when you were doing this, you would obviously you run into fans, but you would do appearances where you would get to meet some of the fans of the show.
We didn't start doing that really until the second or third year.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they decided, I want to say it was the second year, to try to do a little tour. They didn't expect much. So, they bring us to a mall, to a bookstore.
Sure.
And I remember the first time that happened, they almost had to shut things down because people poured in. They weren't prepared for that.
No.
And the store was packed. People couldn't get in and out of the store. I'm sure it was a fire hazard. And so eventually we ended up doing a live touring show.
Which began after the final season. Yeah.
Well, we went back and shot the 4th season. So after the 3rd season, we lost Binya. We lost Binya, and so we took a year, and to sort of heal and recover from having lost Philip, and then Justin Campbell stepped in as Binya, and Justin had been Mickey Mouse.
Oh, okay.
Mickey Mouse is upright.
Right.
Binya is on his quads.
Yes.
And the first live show we did with Justin, he almost died. I looked around and the frog was gone.
But it was just the 3 of us. Natalie, myself, and Binya Paliwa. We would do a 90-minute production twice a day, and then we were off to another city.
And stay on the stage moving the whole time, doing all the singing. There was no voice, there was no, what's the word you say? No, when your mouth's moving.
Yeah, there was no dialogue.
No lip singing. It was just talking and singing the whole time.
Right. It was so much fun.
We would do this song called Head and Shoulders. I would do it. And I'm singing and I'm dancing and I'm moving, I'm doing the whole thing. And then the thing is for the sound guy is the minute it's over to turn off my mic, because when it's over, I'm going.
Now you did yours live, so you were singing live?
All live. We sang the whole show.
Background.
Wow. Because I did the Barney tour for 5 years. I toured around the country, but it was obviously pre-recorded.
Oh no!
So the whole show was pre-recorded. I can't imagine doing a live show for.
And when they first started, I think they didn't think we were human, so they were trying to book 3 and 4 shows a day. Impossible. And so at that time, we did start to meet fans, but we had to
quickly go to the next location. So we couldn't spend much time. The next location would be in another city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also it was just exhausting. Because I don't know how not to engage with everybody.
Right.
And that takes a lot of energy. I didn't know how to sort of like, hey, I didn't know how.
Right.
And so like, what was his name who was traveling with us? Brian would be like, come on, Nat. Come on, Nat. Because I would just be, well, there's another one and there's another little person. And I have to say hi to this one. And this one wants. And you can't do that and then go and do another show live where you are singing and dancing and you never leave the stage for 90 minutes.
Right. So. Well, right. And you have to, it's got to be the same every time. The energy has to be there.
Yeah.
When you're doing live.
Usually packed venues from 1,200 to 3,500.
Wow.
Screaming kids and their parents. We were, one reporter said we were the Smashing Pumpkins for the childhood set.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No. I was just curious. I was curious if he finally got used to being in that squatting position.
Yes, he did. He gained how much? He gained like 10, 12 pounds of muscle in just like 6 to 7 weeks. All like quads down.
Because Philip D. Garcia, the original Binya, he was a break dancer. He just he could jump from and flip in that costume.
And that was his voice too. He was not recorded.
Oh wow!
That was his voice. He did that, and he came up with that. And so then Justin had to learn to do that. That was very hard on the vocal cords.
Wow! How did they do that? Was it recorded?
No. It was all live. All of it.
All live. Wow.
Philip's wife, girlfriend, soon wife, was a speech pathologist, correct?
Yeah.
And she told him that's what he needed to do.
Wow.
Well, it was like what she told him was that there are some people who have certain differing abilities, so that they can't speak on the exhale, they have to speak on an inhale. Mm-hmm. And so instead of saying with the air is coming out,
Binya.
Wow.
And he developed that voice, and he developed that swag of Binya was all Philip. And so when we lost Philip, that was really hard. And then Justin stepped in, and I remember talking to Justin because Simeon grew up with Binya.
Okay.
And Simeon was a baby. He was 5 months old when we shot the pilot for the show. And to him, Binya was real.
Right.
I remember one day he went into Binya's dressing room, and the head was on. And it was like almost traumatic. There was Philip. Right. And so then he just sort of figured out it was Binya, Philip. Like he knew Philip and he knew Binya, Philip. So I remember saying to Justin, well, you see, I know you're stepping into this, but you also understand that Binya is Simeon's friend. Yeah, Binya is Simeon's friend. And if you're going to have to be my son's friend. And he was wonderful. He was wonderful. As a matter of fact, Simeon was in his wedding.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it's amazing how you become a family.
Yeah.
With your other cast and crew, and we haven't shot Barney in 12 years, and I feel like I see him and I talk to him, and it's like yesterday.
Are you still performing?
I haven't. I actually got back in last year.
Don't come around here.
And I hadn't done it in 8 years, and I got back in, and my mom said, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do this." I know you both understand this. Mm-hmm. There's something about, like, being able to make people smile.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The often there's just something, like I said, I hadn't done it in 8 years, and I got back in, and people just, oh my God, there's my friend, there's Barney. And
so you did it as Barney?
I did it as Barney. Yeah, it was an event, and they asked me to come back, and so I did it, and people were just losing their mind. Of course, my mom was like, "Are you sure you're okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be good. I'll be good."
So personal question: the suit still fit?
It did. It did. I had to, stretch a little bit more and all of that.
That's great.
Even my girlfriend, who's now my fiance, she was like, "Are you sure that's yes, I got this. I'm good." There's something about it. You probably will understand this, that like you become that person again. It's like you become a kid again. I don't know. I just went into that mode and was able to just, I understand how important it is.
I am always really 7. I mean, I'm not, but there's a big part of me that's just 7. And, when people talk about your inner child, like mine's like right out here. It's not even like inner. And I think that's what makes it so much fun. I mean, today, for example, I was doing a Zoom storytelling with K through 2.
Oh my goodness.
We were singing and telling stories, and they got to walk up. They were in their class, got to walk up and ask me questions, and we were engaged, and it was great.
So because I went through this as well. Mm-hmm. My plan was never to be in children's entertainment. I was a musician and all of those things, but I can't imagine anything greater. I can't. What the audience, what the kids, what the fans have given to me my whole life of that unconditional love is just, it's the greatest thing in the world. Being able to love back and teach. I mean, what has it been like to you to realize that you've changed some people's lives?
Well, that's
I know it's a little heavy, but you've inspired people.
Take a lot of pride in that, and in hearing the ways that the show that we have impacted their lives. It's different for different individuals,
right?
And there's a realization that in whatever ways that we may think we impacted them, it may be a whole lot or just slightly different for each individual.
And one of the differences also with us and with you is that you played this role for 20 years. Mm-hmm. While Gullah Gullah was probably on for almost that long, we only shot 5 seasons, four seasons.
Right.
So, yeah, my mother just came in and she's actually wearing her Gullah Gullah Island sweatshirt.
I love it. Tell her hello.
Hold on, real quick.
Oh my gosh, hello. I love it.
She didn't know what we were doing. She just happened to put it on.
I love it.
But because we weren't still doing it as long. Mm-hmm. And we hadn't started out as children's performers. And so the adjustment afterwards and the type of work that we evolved into doing. I mean, I still do children because I actually love them, but they aren't the only ones I do. I love adults. I love multi-generational audiences. I do creativity workshops with adults. I do social justice talks using storytelling as a vehicle. So, it's varied. And Ron is education director at Brook Green, but he's gonna say what he does. Yeah.
I'm the vice president for creative education at Brook Green Gardens. Brook Green Gardens is located in Georgetown County, South Carolina, right next door to Myrtle Beach, for people who are aware of that. But Brook Green Gardens is our country's premier sculpture gardens, and it was established in 1931 on 4 former rice plantations. Rice, that's the key word. That means that there were numerous West Africans there, and West Africans are the ancestors of Gullah Geechee people. So there's a lot of programming I do for children, as well as school children, as well as adults, about Gullah Geechee culture and history. And you can find out more about it at www.brookgreen.org. But
and we will put that in the show notes, by the way. We will drive them there. We will drive there. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ron.
Your initial question, I wanted to, Natalie is also a visual artist, and she was in an art show in Lake City, South Carolina, called Art Fields. And we had gone to the opening reception, and there were a group of people that were looking at her art. That year, it was this magnificent piece called The Collared Queen. And they were looking at it, and then one of the gentlemen came and was speaking to us. And then he went back over to look at the art. And when he came back toward us, both of us realized there was something he knew about us that he hadn't realized before. And it was like, I know who you are. And he's an older man. He's in his 30s, early 30s, I'd like to say. But he was saying that he knew who we were. We thought it was because of Gullah Gullah Island. But no, he remembered when we traveled the highways and byways of doing performances in elementary and junior and high schools, and he had seen us perform. And there was a story that I had told, and he remembered that story, the talking coulda. He had left.
It wasn't that one. It wasn't the talking coulda. It was the one where he was free. Anyway, it was not the talking coulda, but it was the other one where you always thought you'd be free. What was that story? Anyway.
I don't know, but he loved that story so much. She always does this. He loved that story. He had gone home telling that story, and he remembered it to that day.
And see, that was wonderful.
That's the significance.
Well, but see, and that's what I mean, is that the impact that you've had that you don't even realize.
Yeah.
Right. That someone goes away and remembers a story from a kid.
He was in 2nd grade, he said. And he remembered us coming to his school and Ron telling, keep on stepping.
I thought it was the talking.
It was keep on stepping, because then he told us the story. He remembered how he said, keep on stepping, keep on stepping. And I mean, for him standing there in the gallery and then telling us the story that Ron told him when he was in 2nd grade.
Right, and you thought it was from Gullah Gullah Island, and here it is from something else that you've done.
Before Gullah Gullah Island.
Right. So I'm really interested to both. I want to ask this question to both of you because you're talking about how you're teaching creativity, and I think kids are free, right? And as they get older, adults, it seems like it's not okay to be creative. We're born with it, and then a lot of people lose it. They have it, but they're afraid to throw it out there. Do you see that with the adults, that they have all these talents and they're scared, or it's not okay?
Been trained out of them. I used to have a workshop on St. Helena Island shortly after we did Gullah Gullah. We had a building on St. Helena. It was called Miss Natalie's Workshop. And basically it was really a big playhouse. There was a room where you could do beads. There was a kiln and ceramics. There was tie-dye. You could just come in and make stuff. And I would find the adults who were so afraid of making a mistake.
Right.
Where kids were just like, nee. I remembered one child coming in with her father. And there was something she wanted to paint. And soon I hear her, she's just crying and he's very stern. And I go in and I go, what's going on? She can't paint that black. She can't paint that black. And I don't want her to get any paint on her clothes. And he had stripped her shirt off, had the poor girl there with no shirt crying. I was like, go away. You go away. And I gave her an apron. I said, it's yours, sweetie. You paint it any color you want. And she was so happy.
Right. Well, I just think, I mean, when you're telling your story earlier, Natalie, that neither one of you were actors. You were scared of a camera and you looked at it as a window talking to a friend. It's so creative. It's so out of the box to think that way. And I think so many adults would have said, no, I can't. They'd have been given a TV show and turned it down because they couldn't have done it. And you found a way.
Well, and Ron had been doing theater, musical theater when I met him. Not me, but he had, which is why he had the theater.
Yeah, well, he's got I can hear, he can boom anytime.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm glad that's because it was kind of grace. When we were pregnant with Simeon, on the road, traveling to schools and whatnot, and you're pregnant, they put you in a cafeteria to tell stories. What is it they're cooking? Oh my God. I'm trying to, and it's like, we can't keep doing this. I don't know if I can raise 2 children on the road. So there's got to be something else. And we didn't know what the something else was. And we talked to like some elders at the time who we respected. And they said, well, it's time for you basically to grow up. And you guys need to get a job with the school system.
Right.
You need to get in the system. And that's what y'all need to do. It's time to grow up. But we were like, I don't think that's it. But it was hard to explain because we didn't know what it was.
Right.
And then grace, it found us. So grateful for that.
Well, you can imagine what it was like for me to go to my parents and tell them I was going to be a purple dinosaur.
What was their response?
Well, luckily I had very supportive parents, but they were still like, I'm not so sure about this. And
how did that happen?
The short story is I was working at a Chili's. I was working there and the guy said to me, hey, can you work for me tomorrow because I need to be Barney? And I was like, what is Barney? Because it wasn't on TV yet. This was way before TV. And so he explained and said, hey, you should go audition. They're looking for someone else. Never been in a costume, but like a lot of performers do, you just say, yeah, sure, I can do it. And so I ended up getting it. And I told my parents I was going to quit Chili's because I thought this was going to take off. And my dad's like, I don't think that's a good idea, but you need to do what you think you need to do. And a year later, we were at Radio City Music Hall performing, and my dad showed up at the concert. And after the show, we're standing in the middle of Radio City Music Hall, and he goes, well, you were right, which to a son, it meant the absolute world. So and you've obviously done this as well, that you kind of have to follow your heart sometimes. You obviously knew there was something else.
We knew it was something else.
I was a mass media arts major at Hampton Institute, now Hampton University. And so I worked with cameras, in front of cameras, as well as behind cameras. But that was for journalism. It was not being on stage performing. There's a whole different.
Well, and I know we started out this, right before we started, I mentioned the term star, and both of you weren't very comfortable with it, but it's really what you were, right? You're the stars of this show. And what was it like for that? All of a sudden you're a star of a TV show, Ron.
We were stars of this TV show, and I'm more comfortable with that. And Natalie was talking about when being in a mall during when the popularity of the show began to rise, and what became a pattern was whenever we were together and Natalie realized we were recognized, she would veer to the left. She would just be gone. I would look around and she would not be there. Like, I'm just left here alone. She would.
See, Ron, once I cut my braids, my locks, people weren't always sure unless they heard me speak. But they knew who he was immediately. So they'd always be like, I think that's Ron. So then I'd just be like.
But she was still, whether she had the braids or not, she was still Natalie. Right. She did not want to be recognized.
It wasn't that I didn't want to be. I just wasn't always sure. It took a while. I was, that many of us who are performers also are somewhat introverted. Yeah. That we can have our public persona, which is real. But also we can be very, and so sometimes, I have to be ready.
Right. Well, you have to refuel.
You're ready or not, it's on you now.
Right, but you have to.
He's always ready.
But you have to refuel that energy, that larger than life.
Yes.
You know as well as I do that when you're doing it, you can't be sad, you can't be sick, you can't be any of those things, right? They came to see Ron and Natalie, and there's a point where you have to refuel that.
Absolutely. That's okay. Oh, I'm sorry. You came on? Okay, well that's one of the things I love about being a visual artist, spending time in my studio, and also sort of how I engage now. So I'm reaching out. I'm engaging much more on social media, and I'm just myself, and so I'm up or I'm not.
Right.
Happy or I'm concerned.
Sure.
And I can just be that. And so that's kind of cool.
I want to know here before we wrap up, what was it like for the two of you when it finally got on TV for the first time? Was it hard to watch yourselves? Was it exciting?
It was exciting. The first thought that I had was, Natalie had explained how we had gone to meet with the producers. Simeon had spat on the the vice president, and we had a show before we arrived home. Right. We had a show, and we were telling family members and friends. And always, we fell on our knees. We were thankful for it, but it was moving on to the next thing. And a friend said, "Well, aren't you excited?" Well, if you're not excited, I'm excited for you. He was going. So that was.
And to be honest, I laughed. I don't know if I watched it for the first 2 years. Wow. It was very hard to see. You watch yourself and you go.
Right.
Oh. So it was really hard for me to watch it. At least watch myself. Right. I've seen them all now. But I didn't watch it. But again, it was just that whole thing. Like if I'm like a little kid. Like if I don't see it, it's not there.
Right.
So, and that also kept me, I think, from moving into some space where I over-identified as a TV performer. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm myself. I'm Natalie. I'm myself. And this was the work that I was doing. And it was lovely, lovely, lovely work with lovely people. I'm really, really proud of it. I am. And as time passes, I am even more grateful. But this, I think, is why I sort of disassociate with the concept of star. It was just me being myself with this wonderful opportunity to be able to do so and to be able to sing and do what I love and get paid for it. How wonderful is that? Yeah.
It is very special, is what it is.
But I mean, just from a more objective view, which it was for me, from a journalistic perspective, to be aware of what was going on, to be aware of what people were responding to. We would be in airports and college students would recognize and come and speak to us and tell us that they skipped their classes every day at 11 o'clock, I think that was the broadcast time, to watch Gullah Gullah Island. Senior citizens would tell us at that time each day they returned to their first childhood. You know, it was that impactful for people. And I could, because I had viewed it, okay, it's good what we were doing, the way that we're doing it, and that has this impact on people.
Yeah, so I just trusted him on that because I wasn't watching it.
It has been an absolute joy getting to talk to both of you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
It has been a pleasure. Yes.
So to put in the plug,
yeah,
I am a visual artist,
please.
so please, look at my website, which is Natalie Daise Art, Natalie DaiseArt.com.
We will do that as well. We will put it out on social media.
Yeah, and I'm Gullah Mama on Instagram, and I engage on Instagram more than anything else.
Okay. What about you, Ron?
I'm Gullah Ron on Instagram, but I'm www.rondaise.com.
Well, we will put it all out there, and I just can't thank you enough. I have enjoyed. It's been such a pleasure talking to you both.
We've enjoyed it.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and we will keep an eye. I'll keep an eye and see what's new, what you all got going on.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching Purple Roads, and remember to keep your eyes, ears, and your heart open, and you'll find your Purple Road. We'll see you next week.